Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and welcome back to Sentinel Reviews. It's finally time. Doctor Who, the show proper, is doing its 60th anniversary. Russell T Davies is back as showrunner, which means it's time to see the big new ideas he's bringing going forward to this new era of Doctor Who. Like bringing back David Tennant, and Catherine Tate, and his old producers and directors, and Murray Gold. So, what exactly is new here? Well, I'm certain the episode is, so the first of the 60th anniversary specials is The Star Beast. Based, on the comic strip of the same name. Okay, so we're apparently also bringing back a staple of Russell T Davies' previous era, the RTD era adaptation. You know, Dalek was an adaptation of the audio drama Jubilee. The Rise of the Cybermen, The Age of Steel was an loose adaptation of the audio drama Spare Parts. Human Nature was an adaptation of Human Nature, the Family of Blood, was an adaptation of the novel Human Nature. Again, so what was the new stuff Davies promised this era? Okay, but all joking and biases aside, The Star Beast is adapted from the comic book by Dave Gibbons and Pat Mills, adapted by Russell T Davies, and directed by Rachel Talalay. The Star Beast stars David Tennant as the 14th Doctor, Catherine Tate as Donna Noble, Yasmin Finney as Rose Noble, Jacqueline King as Sylvia Noble, Ruth Madley as... what was her name again? Where is it? Shirley Ann Bingham, I have my notes right here, and Miriam Margolyes as the voice of Beep the Meep. I will be discussing spoilers, so if you have not seen Doctor Who, The Star Beast, it is currently available, at least in the US, because that's where I live, so that's where I'm going to be talking about where it's available, on Disney+. And just right off the bat, this was fine. It's nothing standout, it's nothing amazing, it's mid. And I really have nothing more to say about it overall than that. It's just, there's some good moments. It's fine. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So we open with actually a recap of Series 4. Because for the Disney Plus era, when Series 15 starts, it's going to be rebranded as Season 1. I will not be doing that. I will still be calling it Series 15. But anyway, because this is a 60th anniversary special, and because Disney Plus is only going to have the new era going forward, we obviously need to catch up new fans who may have never seen Doctor Who before. Yeah, that's a frustrating thing about this era going forward. So the new era, from the 60th anniversary specials and Series 14 onward, I think I said 15 earlier, those are going to be on Disney Plus. New Who, Series 1 through 13, and the Jodie Whittaker specials, once their contract with Warner Brothers expires, this is just what I've heard, I should have double-checked, that will be on BritBox. And then Classic Who is going to be on Tubi. 3 different iterations of Doctor Who on 3 different streaming services. Only one of which is free, so, yeah, that's a thing. Anyway, sorry. So we have an opening scene that's kind of pretty horrendously shot, if I'm being honest, of the 14th Doctor recapping Series 4. And as an anniversary special, I really like this because, one, it is welcoming new fans, catching up new watchers who have never seen Doctor Who before. But overall, aside from an adaptation of a well-loved and popular comic, this particular special is really drawing on Series 4 nostalgia, which, again, as an anniversary special, is fine. I'm not going to do a full plot-by-plot breakdown. I will say, if you're familiar with the comic, there is kind of a twist in the story that knowing beforehand does kind of spoil, but at the same time, maybe knowing it is not entirely a bad thing, because it does kind of recontextualize some of the scenes in this story, and it helps to and it gives a different reading on them. Like a scene that may seem innocent now seems sinister in comparison. I don't want to give a full rundown of the plot like I normally do. I want to try and be as fast and contrite as possible. Performances are all really solid. Like, we have Ruth Madley as Unit's new scientific advisor, Shirley Ann Bingham. She doesn't have a lot of screen time, but she establishes herself very strongly, and I really like her. Also, I forgot Ruth Madley was going to be in the 60th. Earlier, a little while ago, she was actually in Big Finish. In a new story arc for the Sixth Doctor, she played a new companion for him, Hebe Harrison. And then, over the course of that story arc, another companion he takes on turned out to be a eugenicist, and she rewrote history, erasing Hebe from existence. From what I've heard, people said that storyline was awfully rushed. Presumably, it was so Ruth Madley could have time to be in this. Let's see, I talked about Miriam Margolyes. No, I didn't. Miriam Margolyes as Beep the Meep is great. She is perfectly camp, and she's just both. She is so innocent, and she is allowed to go full ham when the script calls for it. It's just really good. A really fun performance. And the puppetry for Beep the Meep is amazing. Actually, I don't know what it is. Puppet, animatronic. I should have watched the behind the scenes video. I didn't. But it is really good. Like, the face has it's very expressive. It has a wide range of emotions. It doesn't feel mechanical in its movement at all. Like, I'm sure if you've seen behind the scenes work on like Jim Henson stuff or other animatronics, and you see how the facial stuff moves, the facial gear, when you watch it in action, it can feel a little bit mechanical, like you can almost hear the gears whirring. You don't get that with Beep the Meep at all. The other aliens, the Wrath Warriors, are also really well done. You know, they're insectoid, but they're not evoking a specific insect. And I do really like that, because it's like, we have aliens, again, in Doctor Who are alien, you know? They aren't just anthropomorphic animals. Like, that was a really big issue with the Davies and Moffat eras. Like, you'd have this alien, and instead it's just a humanoid anthropomorphic animal. Like, the Jadoon is just a rhino, as one example. Or that alien from The Woman Who Lived, I'm forgetting the name, sorry, is just a lion. Again, the Wrath Warriors are insectoid, but they're not a specific insect, which really sort of lends to their alien feel. There are some... This special is gorgeous, by the way. It's continuing the Chibnall era's love of using color. Like, you don't get that washed, faded, muted color scheme, you know, like that the 2010s was so fond of, that I talk about a lot in visual media, that I really hate, where everything's kind of just dull. There's color, but it's very flat. Here, continuing from the Chibnall era, this story just has so much color, and it's amazing to look at. And you can see, too, a lot of money got thrown at this. It is very impressive. The effects are really good. There are some things I didn't like. There's one major issue I have with this that we will talk about at the end. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place trying to figure out what I want to talk about. The sonic screwdriver, I'll give a brief mention of that at the moment. So when the design was unveiled, I'm not going to lie, I kind of hated it. It was just obnoxious and over the top, and from what I've seen of the toy, I haven't gotten one yet, it looked very gauche, I think is the word I want to use. I'm sure there's a better word for it. But in action, it is much smaller than I thought it was going to be. So it's not as hideous in execution as I thought it was going to be from that initial reveal. It's actually really small. That being said, this special does something with the Sonic that I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't like that it can suddenly draw light constructs in thin air now. That was that's a little much. It's a screwdriver. That Sonic, There was a reason John Nathan Turner kind of wrote it out during the Fifth Doctor's era, and I'm going to kind of bring it in again, especially after the Whittaker era did the sonic screwdriver so well. It couldn't do all these things it did in previous eras. It wasn't the be-all, end-all MacGuffin. In the Whittaker era, it would help the Doctor, but it would never solve the problem. It would essentially just give her another piece of the puzzle to solve for herself. But the fact that it can do light constructs that can shield from gunfire, among other things, because he does the light construct thing a couple times, the magic wandification of the Sonic begins again. Anyway, I don't have much more I want to talk about before I get to the big thing. Performances are fairly strong. The standout here really is Catherine Tate as Donna Noble. Her and David Tennant, once again, as always, have amazing chemistry. Whether it's as the Doctor and Donna, whether it's as Beatrice and Benedict in Much Ado About Nothing, whether it's Scrooge McDuck in Magica De Spell and DuckTales, they are a really great team who knows how to work off each other. Yasmin Finney as Donna's daughter Rose is also really good. I talked about Ruth Madley. Jacqueline King, I am so sorry, I just blanked on her name. Jacqueline King as Sylvia is hilarious. She obviously is well-intentioned, but she just kind of goes too far. And Miriam Margolyes, I also talked about. She was really enjoyable as Beep the Meep. Of all of our really strong cast, though, the one weak link, and if you're familiar with my takes, this is not new, this won't be shocking to you, is David Tennant as the 10th Doctor. Again, he's fine. It seems Davies is aware of some of the mistakes he made in his previous era. Like ultimately, spoilers, one of the things this special ultimately does is undo the meta-crisis thing that was going to kill Donna. It starts off being really creative and unique. Spoilers, the leaks were kind of confirmed on what was going to happen there. And then it just kind of devolves into nonsense, for lack of a better term. It's kind of silly. Although it does kind of also open a can of worms, because if this leak was true, there is another leak about how David Tennant will regenerate into Ncuti Gatwa that is kind of worrying. Anyway, as I was saying before I went on that tangent, David Tennant is the weak link of this special, unfortunately. He's fine, but everyone else is giving a stronger performance than him, but also just let down by the fact that in character and execution, the 14th Doctor is just the 10th Doctor. Kind of in principle and on paper, I am against this idea of former Doctors coming back to play a future incarnation of the Doctor. Now, as a broad statement, I'm against the idea, but if there are exceptions to the rule, like I kind of like the Curator. But the thing is, the Curator is kind of framed as a different character, and he is still the Doctor, but he is playing a different part of the Doctor's personality entirely. So, like, if the 14th Doctor was characterized different, or anything else, like, if David Tennant was allowed to use his natural Scottish accent this time around, it might help better. But the fact that the 14th Doctor is just the 10th Doctor, I'm not a fan. That might just be biased because I'm not a fan of the 10th Doctor, but also, just again, if they did something different with this Doctor, if they didn't just make him the 10th Doctor again, I would be a little bit happier. But, like I said, it was fine. It's okay. There's only really one major thing I have issue with in this special. And it's kind of, we're 3 for 3 now. It's kind of been a trend with Russell T Davies this time around. Russell T Davies. Oh, first of all, shoot, before I get back to that, sorry, I just remembered this too. I do like the 14th Doctor's costume. It seems like, in some ways, an update of the 10th Doctor's costume. I like the way the blue and the brown contrast. It feels kind of like hang on. So, actually, there we go. It feels like an inverse of the brown suit with the big blue overcoat. So, like, No, of the blue suit with the big brown overcoat. There we go. I always said the blue suit was the 10th Doctor's best look, especially when he had that coat. So now he has a brown suit with a big blue overcoat. Again, it feels like an inverse of a previous suit. And I think it works really well. The TARDIS console, when we get the reveal at the end, is gorgeous. It is one of New Who's best TARDIS consoles, along with the 12 Doctors. This set is massive. It really captures just how big a TARDIS is on the inside. And there are other things I like it's got levels like Capaldi's console. Capaldi's console had sort of the base where the console itself was, and then it had staircases to another level wrapped around the outside. This kind of does that, but on a much bigger degree. And also how sort of sterile it is and how sort of cold the lighting is very classic Who in execution. Again, look up photos of it. This TARDIS console is gorgeous. But now, finally, we can talk about the one major issue I have with this story. So, there's kind of been an unfortunate trend at the moment developing in Davies' era. And I'm going to call it a trend because now we are 3 for 3 on it happening. Russell T Davies, with the best of intentions, is trying to be very socially conscious, avoid some things that might not work well. And I'm building up to it, don't worry. But in doing so, his execution hasn't been the best. At best, it's just kind of been mocked and teased. And at worst, his way of trying to avoid being problematic in and of itself is problematic. So let's start with the least egregious offender, the power of the Doctor, Jodie Whittaker's regeneration. So, when Jodie Whittaker regenerated into David Tennant, the clothing regenerated too. The 14th Doctor regenerated, ready-made in his costume. Behind the scenes, Davies said he did this to avoid some just poorly aged drag humor, so to speak. And people just kind of teased him about this. It's nothing serious in the long run. I personally don't think it would have been a big problem because the 13th Doctor's costume is very gender neutral. It's very androgynous. And then Destination Skaro, the Children in Need special happened. And this special sees the 14th Doctor go back in time to Skaro around the time Davros is first creating the Daleks. Now we see Davros, played by Julian Bleach, before his disfigurement, before he essentially became kind of a Dalek himself, so to speak. And Davies said, going forward, Davies said this was the Davros of 2023. He wanted to portray Davros like this to avoid the, yes, fairly ableist, evil cripple trope. And I can understand that. I do get his intentions. And then he said that this was how Davros was going to be portrayed going forward. I am going to give Russell T Davies the benefit of the doubt and just assume he misspoke or something he said was taken out of context. But if that is the case, as it stands, regardless of his intentions, because yes, I want to reiterate, the evil cripple trope is ableist and problematic, but regardless, to take a character who is portrayed as disabled and suddenly write out his disability and portray him as not being disabled anymore, in and of itself is ableist. And that brings us to the Star Beast, where this trend kind of continues. Donna's daughter, Rose Noble, is non-binary. And Davies establishes this in a scene where her and her mother are walking home, and a couple of boys from Rose's school ride by them on bikes and dead name her. Now, I am a cis man, so I am not the expert on this, but I am in a couple of Discord servers, a couple of Doctor Who Discord servers, and people I am acquainted with, trans voices have talked about this is kind of a problem because there's no real purpose to the scene. All it does is establish Rose as non-binary. And since we've become more aware, this has constantly been a thing in media. Even if it is towards a more altruistic goal, this dead naming scene, I don't think there's an official name for it, which is why I'm calling it that, hence the quotes, is problematic. It is like, even if it is just to establish a character is non-binary, still having a scene where they are dead named in and of itself is transphobic. That's all I'm going to comment on the matter, because again, cis man, I am not the person to talk about on this. But yeah, like I said, it's just a trend I seem to be noticing. Davies is trying to be socially conscious of the times and what's going on, but in doing so, he is misstepping. Given that since he has taken over, this has happened all 3 times, I'm going to keep my eyes open and see if it happens going forward, or if he becomes a little bit more aware. Because Davies, for all his faults as a showrunner of Doctor Who, outside of Doctor Who, he is usually really good about things like this. But yeah, the Star Beast is fine. Like, it is very mid. Like, I would probably give it a 6 out of 10. It's entertaining, but nothing really strong. It's got great performances. It looks amazing. But those are just my thoughts. Have you heard the Star Beast? What are yours? Please start a conversation in the comments below. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, click the bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload, and in the description box below, you'll find the link to my social medias where you can follow me and get updates on the channel. This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and I'll see you guys next time.